This tutorial aims to go over some basics of InDesign that can be used to create books, portfolios, and the like. InDesign is great for streamlining the production of any multi-page document. For purposes of this demo, I'll be roughly recreating the setup I used for a book about the card game The Grimwood, which I designed. We'll review how I set up the master pages and paragraph styles for the structure of the book, which had 3 sections: the development, the art, and the Kickstarter. Then I'll roughly reproduce the Ghouls and Goblins pages to show you how placing actual content in InDesign works. So let's get started. To give an overview of InDesign's workspace and page navigation, let's open this mock-up of the pages I'll set up in more detail later in this tutorial. The central window is where the pages show up. If you're familiar with other Adobe products, you'll recognize the toolbar on the left and palettes on the right. For creating multi-page documents, I like to choose the typography workspace. It makes the tools I'll use most often, the Pages, Paragraph, and Paragraph Styles palettes, easily available. 2 other palettes I like to add are the Properties palette, which has document properties like the margins and size of the document, and the Align palette, which helps me align text and image boxes easily. Let's take a closer look at page navigation. If you open the Pages palette, you see an overview of your document. The upper part of the Pages palette is the Master Page section, where the templates for your pages are. Here you can add elements that you want to appear across multiple pages, such as headers or footers. The lower part of the Pages palette is where all your active pages, the pages that are the actual pages of your project that you are going to print, are. Master pages are where a lot of the power of InDesign lies, because you don't have to recreate the layout and formatting of every page in your book from scratch. If you have a template you can base your page on. Since I have 3 sections to the book, I created 3 chapter intro master pages. A is the master page for the development of the Grimwood. B is the master page for the chapter intro on art. For the art section, I also created another template for the art pages themselves because they would have a different layout from the chapter intro. C is the Kickstarter master page. It has an A in the upper corners, indicating that it has been based on the A template above, the development intro master. You can base master pages on each other when they are similar, but also you can change what you need to. In this case, the footer at the bottom of the page has changed to reflect that it is the Kickstarter section and not the development section. The first page of an InDesign document is the right-hand side of a spread. Think of the first page in a book. It can be used for the title page or other introductory pages of a book or portfolio. Typically, if you are printing a book, printers ask for the cover to be on a separate file that also has the spine info and back cover. Sometimes though, if I am just doing something digital that won't be printed, I'll use this first page as a cover. The rest of the live pages in this document include the chapter intro of the art section and the Ghouls and Goblins pages, which you can see are based on the art pages master. You can always tell which master page an actual page is based on because the letter will be in the upper corner of the actual pages. InDesign makes working with many pages flexible and easy. You can drag a master page template down into the live section of the page palette to create actual pages based on that master page. You can move a page around by highlighting it, grabbing it with the mouse, and dragging it to wherever in the document you'd like it to go. Where it's going to be placed is indicated by a thin gray line or a black bar if it is in between a spread. InDesign automatically resequences the other pages to accommodate the change. You can also replace a page by dragging the page you want on top of the page you want to replace. When you see the black rectangle appear over the page to be replaced, release the mouse and the new page will overwrite the old page. Any changes you make in the Pages palette will be reflected in the main window. You can also add pages by clicking on the Create New Page icon here. Let's say you don't want any master applied to your new pages. Just right-click on the pages you want to change, choose Apply Master to Pages, and select None. You can also add new blank pages by dragging the None template from the Master Pages section. Anytime you want to change the template a page is based on, you just have to go back to choose Apply Master to Pages and select the new master you want. You can even apply templates page by page instead of spread by spread. For example, here I am applying the Art Pages Master to page 10 by highlighting the page and selecting the Art Pages Master. Then on page 11, I apply the Kickstarter Master. You can delete pages by highlighting them and clicking on the trash icon. You can duplicate pages by dragging them to the Create New Pages icon. Okay, so let's start setting up master pages. Create a new document and enter the dimensions of your project. In this case, I'm going to change the units from picas to inches and check that the orientation is horizontal and the width and height is 10 by 7. I'll leave the other settings as is because they'll be modified later. The way I prefer to set up master pages and paragraph styles is to design the page to look the way I want it to, and then I make a master page or paragraph style out of it. So I'm going to make some live pages by dragging a master template into the live section and removing the applied template so I have a blank canvas. Next, I'm going to modify the margins for my document under the Properties panel. Notice how any changes made in the margin properties show up dynamically in the main window. If you want some sides to have different margins, you can click on the chain in the middle to break their link. Now you can change top, bottom, inside, and outside margins independently of each other. Sometimes it makes sense for the inside margin to be more than the other sides, because if the document is going to be printed, you might want to leave room for the binding. In this case, however, I'll keep the margins all 1 inch all around. Next, I'm going to set up a grid for my document. With layouts, grids make placing elements such as text and image boxes much more organized and is a good design practice. In this case, text is going to be organized into 1 to 3 columns, so I could have gone with a 3-column grid. But because I know I'll have a lot of various sized images, I'd like more flexibility and more grid lines for guidance. So I'll go with a 6-column grid with a gutter of 0.1875. Gutters are the space between the columns. With gutters, you just want to make sure that there's enough space so your columns don't feel too crowded. You can decide what kind of grid is right for your project. Now I have a grid to place text and image boxes on so they will align neatly if I want them to. As you're working, sometimes you want to see how things will look without the grid. Press W to toggle the grid and margins on and off. Now I'm going to start creating elements for the layouts. I'll start with the chapter intro layouts, which will be text heavy. First, I'll select the type tool from the toolbar, or I could use the keyboard shortcut T. Using the grid as a guide, I'll click and drag to create the first text box. Then I'll copy that text box by holding the Alt or Option key and clicking and dragging the new box over. You know you are copying something when 2 arrows appear at your cursor. Next, I'll select the group of text boxes, duplicate them by holding the Alt-Option key, and drag them to the next page of the spread. InDesign has useful guidelines to tell you how elements are aligning with each other. These text columns will take the whole page, so I'll stretch them out. Right now, these text boxes are independent of each other, so if I have a large amount of text that exceeds the size of one text box, it won't automatically flow into the other text boxes I have set up. I need to link the text boxes to each other so text will flow continuously. I do this by clicking on the text box, then clicking on the box at the bottom right-hand corner of each box. The arrow that appears indicates that this text box now will flow any extra text to another place. A chain link symbol appears next to the cursor, indicating that the cursor is ready to link to another text box. Select the text box you want to connect with the first box, and now the two are linked. I'll repeat the process so all the text boxes on the spread are linked to each other. InDesign has a handy feature called Fill with Placeholder Text, which you can use to fill text boxes if you're not sure yet what your body copy will be, or if you want it to be generic for a template. It's located under the Type menu. Next, I'll create a text box for the title of the section. I'll format the placeholder text to look the way I want so I could make paragraph styles out of them later. Using the contextual menu that appears because I'm using the Type tool, I'll set the font to be Garamond Bold and the size to be 34 point for the title, and set the font and size for the body text too. I'll make some adjustments to the placement of the text, as I noticed that the text boxes on the left page has some extra space between the last line of the text and the bottom margin that I don't need. Let's set up the footers and page numbers next. First, I'll create a text box. Then, under the Type menu, I'll choose Insert Special Character, Markers, and Current Page Number. This inserts the page number into the text box. Before I add the footer, I'm going to add an end space. This is a special white space that is useful when you want a consistent space between text elements. Spacebars can be unreliable with spacing sometimes, so this is a good alternative. Then I'll type in the name of the footer and format it to the font and size I want. At this point, I notice that the footer is way too close to the body text, so I'll lower it. That looks okay, so now I'll create the footer on the other page. I'll bring down a horizontal guideline by dragging down from the top ruler and holding Control so the ruler extends across both pages. Now I'll duplicate the left side footer and bring that to the right side, using the guideline to place it. To double check that the footers are aligned with each other, I can use the Align panel. Different ways to align or distribute objects are found in this panel. Here, I chose to align the footers by their top edges. Now, I'll delete the page number and end space, right-align the footer in the paragraph panel, and reinsert the end space and page number so the footer is correct for the right side of the spread. To set up paragraph styles, first I'll check that all the text is looking the way I'd like. One thing that will improve the body text is to justify the text instead of keeping the left alignment. To do this, I'll select all the body text by hitting Ctrl-A, open the paragraph panel, and click the Justify with last line aligned left. This makes the columns feel much neater. Now that everything is formatted, I'm ready to make a paragraph style for the body text. To do that, I'll go to the Paragraph Styles panel, click on the new paragraph style icon, and name the style Body Copy. On the left side of this menu are the formatting options you could set for this style, and under Style Settings you can see a summary of all the formatting the style has so far. Like master pages, you can base paragraph styles on other existing styles. In general though, I like to select No Paragraph Style because it makes it easier to troubleshoot when things act funny. The rest of the settings, like Garamond, Justified Alignment, checks out, so I'll click OK. Paragraph styles are like templates for text. Once you set up a style, you can format any text to look like how you want with a simple click. For example, let's say I have some random text that isn't formatted properly. I can just click on the body copy paragraph style, and now the text is formatted with Garamond and Justified Alignment. The style works on each paragraph you apply the style to. It's a great time saver. Now I'll make another paragraph style for the titles I'll have in the book, which will all have the same format. I'll name the style Title, check the settings, which seem okay, and I'll just change this to No Paragraph Style too. The master page and paragraph styles are ready to go, so to make the master page official, I'll drag it from the Live section into the Master Pages section. I'll delete the A master since I don't need it, and rename the master I just created by right-clicking and selecting Master Options. I'll give this master the A prefix and name it Development Intro Master for the first section of the book. Notice that you can base masters off each other and set it here. Since the other chapter intro pages follow the same layout, I'll duplicate the development layout by dragging it to the Create New Page icon and rename it B Art Intro Master. Another way to create a new master page is to right-click somewhere in the master page section and select New Master. We'll give this one a C prefix and name it Kickstarter Intro Master. Because it also will have the same layout as the development master, I'll select Base on the A master. This creates a third layout identical to the A master. The only thing different is the placeholder on the page number, which is C instead of A, reflecting the current master prefix. This will be the case on all the different masters. So now I have master pages of the 3 sections almost set up. I just need to update the footers of the other sections to have the right name. For the B master, I'll change the footer to Art of the Grimwood, and the C footer will be Kickstarter Lessons. There's one last master page I need to create, and that's the one for the art pages themselves, which will show the concept art of each Grimwood character and a short explanation of how the character evolved. I'll name it B Art Pages Master. Next, I'll create the layout by deleting the extra text boxes to leave room for the images, and mirror the right page to look like the left page. If for purposes of your layout you want image boxes, InDesign has a rectangle frame tool you can use to create boxes you can later place your images into. While I've created image frames for the left page, I'll leave them off the right page because I know that most of my images will vary too much in size for me to predict exactly how they'll be laid out. I will mainly leave the layout as white space and just rely on the grid to help place images. Just as an aside, anytime you see a red plus sign in the bottom corner of the text box, it means there is more text beyond what the text box is displaying. If this weren't placeholder text, I'd have to make the text box bigger to show all of the text or eliminate some text. There are a couple of other things I'd like to do to this layout before I call it ready. One is to unlink the text boxes on the left and right pages. If you recall, the master page this master page is based on had all of the text boxes linked together, and even though we deleted most of them, they still retain a link to each other. Because each page in this section will be on a different Grimwood character, there is no reason for the text boxes on this layout to be connected. To unlink text boxes, select the text box and click on the arrow in the box on the bottom corner. This should load the cursor. Move the cursor around a little until you see a broken chain link and then click. This disconnects the link between the text boxes. Now the text box on the right page is empty because it no longer has the overflow text from the left page. We'll fill the right text box with placeholder text and apply the body, copy, paragraph style to it. I'm thinking the text on this art page layout might look better if the first paragraph had a drop cap, so let's go over how to set that up. I'll click on New Paragraph Style 1, and name this style Body Copy with Drop Cap. Then on the left side, I'll select drop caps and nested styles. In this menu, you can set how many lines you want the drop cap to drop, as well as how many characters you want the drop cap to be. You can see the changes in the main window as long as the preview box is checked. In this case, I'll set it to drop 2 lines and be 1 character long. I'll also change the letter to be a capital A, which looks better. With paragraph styles, you can always modify the formatting if you change your mind. Just go back to the paragraph style options menu and make the changes you want. In this case, I've decided to drop the drop cap for 3 lines instead of 2. When you modify a paragraph style, the changes you make will show up on any paragraph that has that paragraph style. Okay, so now the master pages are set up and are ready to place content on actual pages. I'll drag the Art Pages Master down to the Live Pages section. To replace the filler text with the actual text, hold down Ctrl-Shift and click on the text box to unlock it. This allows you to modify the template. Any text or image boxes you created on a master page is known as a master page item. You have to unlock any master page item you want to place content in. These will be the Ghouls and Goblins pages in the book. Let's say I want to place an image into this image box. First, I unlock the box by holding Ctrl-Shift and clicking on it. Then, I'll hit Ctrl-D to place an image. Once I select an image, it will be placed within the image box. Notice that the image doesn't really fit in the frame nicely. To fix this, I need to adjust the fitting of the frame to the content. In InDesign, the frame an image is placed into is separate from the image itself, which is considered content. Frame and content are 2 different things. Right-clicking on a frame and choosing Fitting shows the various ways frame and content can be manipulated. If I select Fit Content to Frame, InDesign will try to adjust the image to fit within the frame. However, if I want the proportions of the image to be kept while still keeping within the bounds of the frame, a better choice would be to select Fit Content Proportionally. Now, if I want the frame to fit the content, I can do so. Another thing I can do with frames is round the corners, which will look better for this image of the Ghouls card from the Grimwood game. From the top contextual menu, I'll choose the Frame Border drop-down menu and select the rounded border. I'll repeat the same process for the next image. You can tell the difference between frame and content because they will have different colors. The content appears with a brown box, and it can be moved separately from the frame. This can be used to crop an image. Because frame and content are separate, if I want to resize the image, I can't just resize the frame. It will merely enlarge the frame and leave the content as is. To resize both frame and content at the same time, I have to hold down Control while I resize. Rotating and moving the frame moves and rotates the image too. There are multiple images that I want to place on the rest of the Gould page, so I'll delete the single image box so I can place them in a different way. I still hit Ctrl D to place the images. I can select multiple images by holding down Shift. After I click Open, the cursor is loaded with all the images I selected. I can place them in frames I size on the fly by clicking and dragging on the page. Now that I've placed all the images, I'll tweak their placement to improve the layout. For the top row of images, I'll use the Align panel to help adjust their placement. Here, I'll choose to distribute based off the vertical centers of the selected objects. If an image appears too pixelated, it doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong. InDesign sometimes shows a lower res version of an image to save memory. To see it full resolution, you can right-click, select Display Performance, then High Quality Display, with the image selected. Okay, I think that does it for the Ghouls page. Now onto the Goblins page. Since I didn't create any image boxes for that side of the layout, I'll just place images by selecting all the ones I want and drawing frames for them on the fly. I'll adjust their placement by moving and resizing them like I did with the Ghouls. When I press W to bring back the grid, I can see the goblin images are a bit too beyond the margins than I like, so I resize so they conform better to the grid I established. For these goblin illustrations, I can take advantage of the frame content distinction in InDesign to separate each individual goblin by copying and reframing the original image that had the four together. One other thing you can do in InDesign is wrap text around an image. To do this, select the image, then the text wrap panel, and choose how you'd like the text to wrap. Oh, and don't forget to unlock any master page items that you want to change. In this case, I had to unlock the text box so the text wrap would work. Like other Adobe products, InDesign has layers, which can be useful when overlaying images. Opening the Layers panel will display all the layers in the document. So far, I've just been working on one. I'll create a new layer so I can overlay an image onto the chapter intro page. Press Ctrl D, select, and drag to place the image onto the layer. After resizing the image, I can adjust its opacity by adjusting the slider in the top contextual menu. I've placed most of the content now, and after looking over the document and adding some more placeholder text for the title page, the document is ready to export. To export, select File, Export. Name the file and choose where it should go. The export menu contains a lot of options, but I mainly use the default of high quality print. If you're getting something printed, the printer sometimes has specific PDF formats they'll recommend. Since everything looks okay, I'll hit Export. I get a warning that there is overset text, which means that a text box has text in it that is not showing because the text box is not big enough to display at all. Since everything is placeholder text, I'm not concerned. Otherwise, I'd check to make sure I didn't accidentally leave out some body copy. After it exports, I'll look over the PDF. Everything looks as I laid it out in InDesign. It is just presented in page view instead of as a spread, but that's pretty normal. And that's about it. There's a lot more to InDesign and many more cool things about it, but this tutorial covers the tools I use most often. Hope you find them helpful as well.